Hello and welcome. Welcome to Quilt Conversations Live. I'm Geraldine Wilkins, the Living Water Quilter. I'm so glad to be with you on this warm July evening. Hello to Annette and hello, Lori. Aloha. How are you? And Jacqueline is here. Fantastic. Hello, Jacqueline. And hello, Cassie in Cleveland, Ohio. Wow, I have a lot to share with you. Hey, there goes Sharon. Hello. Awesome. Sharon is working. I hope you get your grading done so you can have a free weekend, Sharon. Well, as you know, Clover is a sponsor of Quilt Conversations Live. And so I'm happy to share some of the tools that I use from Clover. Thank you, Clover, for sponsoring Quilt Conversations Live. I have a tool tonight that I will share with you that I like to use for free motion quilting. This is an extra tip. I know I said I'm going to share 5 tips, but you know what ends up happening? I end up sharing more. Hello, how are you? So glad that you're here from Maryland. Welcome. Well, let's get started because we have a lot to go over. So I want to give you some updates on what's been happening. If you didn't know, I went to Bernina University. It was held in Dallas, Texas. And it just so happened while I was in Dallas, I was also teaching a free motion quilting class. So at Bernina University, if you're not familiar, let me share with you a kind of quick tour of the Merchant Mall and the classrooms. It's an opportunity for Bernina dealers to learn about the newest Bernina and bernette machines. It's an opportunity for them to take classes so that when you come to their shop, they have the machines there. They also have skills because they've been taking classes on how to use the machine. Hello, so glad that you're here. Welcome, quilting all the time. So, Bernina University, I was able to visit that. It was a privilege, and I'm so glad I had that opportunity to look at the latest machines, to see them demonstrated, and I had to go by the embroidery booth and I wanted to know more about what embroidery designs I can stitch on my new bernette machine. So that was really fun. I enjoyed that. And like I said, while I was in Dallas, I got a chance to teach free motion quilting, but specifically for art quilting. Hello. Yes, it was fun, Lori. It was a lot of fun. I got a chance to see some people that I know, spend some time with them, and just look at some new things. Very exciting experience. My first time ever going. Um, so the Dallas Modern Quilt Guild, they invited me to come share a lecture about my journey from being a professional photographer to a quilter, and I'm always thankful for the opportunity to share my experiences and the opportunities I've had over the years. But we also had a free motion quilting course on how to free motion quilt what I call line drawing. Line drawing, and that's with thread instead of a pencil. So it's not really painting with thread, but it is, but it isn't. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to go to the overhead camera and let you see what I mean. So this is a face that I decided to try on my new bernette. Now, I had not stitched free motion quilting on the bernette yet. And I was going to teach this course, and often when I teach a course and I hadn't taught it in a while, I want to practice. You know my motto, practice, right? So I want to recall the things that I was going to teach, how to transfer the image to fabric, what tools to use, what machine settings, and I knew that I had not learned how to set up the bernette machine for free motion quilting. So I thought, perfect opportunity. I can do two things at once. So this is what I started with. It's not finished, it's in the early stages, but let me show you how it started. And this is how the class with the Dallas Modern Guild started. I sent them a packet of line art. That's where I get the line drawing with thread. Line art. So if you go on the internet, you can Google free vector line art. Yes, practice, practice, practice. And you can use it for your personal use. If you want something a little bit more sophisticated like this, you have to pay for it. So I went and I found a website that had some beautiful art by artists, right? That were unique and different. And I purchased a license to use it for my class. And it also included some beautiful flowers. So I printed them out, I taped them together, and then I started to play with how it was going to be next to her face. Now, you see all the flowers on here. You don't have to stitch everything you see. You can stitch some of it and you can change the way it looks. It's up to you because it's your artwork, right? So this is what it is. Hopefully you can see that a little bit better. How about that? Maybe that light's better. There we go. Okay. So how do you transfer? I used a Lightbox. I used this new Lightbox that I picked up. It's lightweight, it's very thin, it's only 9 inches by 12 inches. It's super, super thin and lightweight. I was able to travel with it in my suitcase, no problem. And so you just put this on top of the Lightbox, you turn it on, you put your fabric on top, you got to make sure you tape it, right? Then you have to transfer. How do you transfer the art? So that's where Clover comes in. That's where Clover comes in. Now, because I love free motion quilting, I have an abundance of marking tools because not everything is equal. So I always recommend to find tools like this one, which is a white marking pen with a fine tip. So if you're taking notes, you want something that's white and a fine tip. You want to accurately be able to sketch this onto the fabric without the line being too thick. It just depends on what the ultimate purpose is. So this one is removed with heat. So you see on the package, there's an iron. It's removed with heat. Then they have others that are water soluble. And I like having a variety of colors. So these are pencils, not a pen. And over time with pencils, you will need to sharpen them if you need a fine point. That's why I like to have something that's continuously a fine point that I don't have to sharpen, and then use other tools that I don't mind sharpening because I'm not doing a big project, but also offer different colors. Because sometimes, even with the Lightbox, if the fabric is too dark, you can't use these tools. You need to create a stencil and use a pounce pad, which were some of the techniques I taught in the class. So these are some of the tools that I have for marking that are from Clover. Pencils that can be sharpened and they're water soluble. You remove it with water, which you also want to consider, because if you're working on a project and say you have other materials in the project that cannot be that are not heat resistant, put it that way. You can't put an iron on top of it. You won't be able to remove the marks, right? In that case, you want to use water, and vice versa. You might have something on the fabric that you don't want water to touch it. Then you want to use something where you remove the marks with heat. So something to think about, right? Okay, so I want to show you. Are you ready to see what the students worked on? I have several pieces. They shared it on their social media. So if after this you want to look at it more closely, you can go to the Dallas Modern Quilt Guild Instagram feed and probably their Facebook page. But I want to share with you the art first. I want you to show you the vector art, the line art before they did the stitching, before they painted. We did some painting on it with Inktense pencils, watercolor pencils. Let's take a look at the art first. So we had a flamingo, we had an elephant, and a butterfly. Those are the ones I'm going to show you today, but they had like 10 or 15 different designs that I give in my packet for them to choose from so that they can not only do the butterfly or the flamingo in the class, they have an opportunity to do it in another project. So, are you ready to see what they stitched? All right, let's take a look. Now, you know, ladies, I love elephants. I love elephants. Look at this one. Is this gorgeous? And let me tell you, for most of the students in the class, this was the first time that they transferred the image to fabric and stitched it out with thread. Is that gorgeous? I love elephants. I love how she used variegated thread for the sun. It radiates. I love the greenery in front of the elephant. Well done. I think it's gorgeous. All right, that is the first one. And then several ladies decided they wanted to do the flamingo. And part of the class is that they will pre-construct, if they choose, they can use a whole cloth or they can use a log cabin block. Cassie says, I'm getting very excited about this. Good. It's interesting. Excuse me. It's interesting to see the line art and think, well, what can I do with that? And so part of the class is to help them figure out what else to put with the art, butterfly, flamingo, is to tell a story. Just like my face, the other things that I'm going to add will help tell a story. So each one, even if three ladies, which there were three ladies, picked a flamingo, each of them told a different story with thread. And we worked on that together. It was a wonderful, wonderful workshop. I really enjoyed it. And here's the other flamingo. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but she painted in a little bit on the feathers. And her flamingo has a different personality. Then she did some free motion quilting underneath, like it's in the water. Beautiful texture. So she's just in the beginning. Everyone was working at their own pace, which again, I love that. Right? Let's see, what's next? Now, this is where we're going to get into a little bit more of the coloring. Yes, it is very creative. So here's the butterfly, and then one lady, she added a couple of flowers with thread. That's thread. Then she wanted to paint. In the blue section, when I show you the next photo, check out the bottom part, the blue section. She added a cobblestone walkway with grass. Beautiful. This is all her own design. As we talked about the story of the butterfly, we would just go back and forth and figure out what would we add to it. Okay, let's take a look. Are you ready to see the butterfly painted? Here it is. And she added some clouds. It looks like I need to move this a little bit here. Let's see. So that you can see the cobblestones with grass going through it. And she did some coloring on the stone, and this is with the watercolor pencils. I love these pencils. I'm just learning how to use them. There are a ton of videos here on YouTube, excellent teachers who give demonstrations on how to use these pencils. How many of you have used watercolor pencils on your sewing or quilting projects? And these are color fast. Once you set them with heat, the color will not wash out. But you can always add more water, add more color. You can heat set it, then put color on top of that, and it won't turn to mud. Once you heat set it, the color stays, then you can add color on top. Let me show you the pencils. Yeah, you can mix the two. Let's take a look here. Okay, so these are the pencils that I brought to class. The ladies were able to use. They're called Inktense Pencils. And they have different sets, a 12 pack, a 24, I think 128 or a 64 pack. But look at the rainbow of colors. Let's see if I can hold this up. All right. Beautiful, beautiful. And these are going to last me forever. This is a lot of ink. And the reason why is because you use a applicator. Now you can take the pencil and you can draw right on it, right? Then you can take something like this that you fill with water, and this end has a brush. And it drips a drop at a time. And then you wet it, and then the ink, the color gets intense. It gets bright. And you can see how I was playing with it here. And it also can become a watercolor-like. See how it's very faint? You don't see the lines in it. So many options. Then you can color in and outline and blend different colors, blending up here. And once you heat set it with an iron, it's permanent. You have an option of using water by taking the pencil and dabbing it right on the pencil and then applying it that way. Or you can do the pencil first, then apply water. But once you apply water, it will start to spread. It won't contain. So if you want it to be contained in a specific area, you want to use something called a fabric medium instead of water. So that's what we went over. So this was really, really fun. We had a fabulous time in this class, and it's a free motion quilting class, but with some additional techniques. So they had fun and I had fun teaching it. But remember, I said that I did not try free motion quilting yet on the bernette. So I said, let me figure out how to set it up. What's the first thing you think I did when it was time to set up my machine? And this is where I know if you have been waiting for those tips for free motion quilting, they're coming now. Those tips for free motion quilting are coming now. Where did I go first? Yes, Cassie asked if the color pencils are for fabric. You can use them on paper too. Paper and fabric, I think it said. Let me take a look again. I think it's both. Ink pencils. Let's see. Multiple languages in the back. All right. Cassie, I have to get my glasses now just to make sure I don't give you the wrong information. Let's see. It says it's suitable for use on paper, and fabrics for a wide range of fine art and craft projects. The pencils are available in 72 colors. Hello, Phelan. Welcome, welcome. So glad that you're here. So, paper and fabric. And I have 24 colors. There's 12, there's 24, and I think I saw a pack for 48 or something like that. I thought 24 was a good in between number for me. So what did I do first? Yes, Lori, I went to the user manual. You're right. That's exactly what I did. And I did it on my phone. And this is why I was so glad that I downloaded the manual onto my phone. So if you have the digital version of your machine manual, I recommend you put it on your smartphone. And here is why. I'm going to turn my phone on and I'm going to show you why I did that. Let me get to it first. Okay. Let me go to the overhead camera. So here it is on my phone. It's a digital file with multiple pages. And you think, man, that looks tiny. But you know, we can pinch and make it bigger. But the other thing we can do is hit the search. And I can type in free motion. And as soon as I hit free motion, it jumps to the page that I want. And there it is. And it has all the specific information that I need to set up the machine for free motion quilting. It tells me the quilting needle, the thread. It tells me what foot to drop the feed dogs, and then it gives tips for free motion quilting. And then all I do is pinch it, and then if I want it to be horizontal instead of vertical to give myself some more room to read, I can do that. So easy. And then it has multiple steps. How to make the quilt sandwich, using the foot control, move the fabric. So if you have not started with free motion quilting, my first tip to you is break out that manual. You want to know your machine. This is all about 5 tips for setting up your machine for free motion quilting. And the first tip is get to know your machine. So that's what I did. I opened the manual. And let me go to my bernette here. So there's how I did the Lightbox and how I transferred the image using the Lightbox, marked it. And don't forget, if you're going to try this, tape it down, even tape down the fabric. I taped down the line art, I taped down the fabric, and there it is marked. Then I went to my machine. And when I went to my machine, I said I needed to have the right needle, have the right stitch plate. This machine has 2 different stitch plates. One is for a zigzag stitching, which you see is a 7mm, and right next to it is 0, which means it's a single hole. So if your sewing machine allows you to have a single hole stitch plate, that is preferable. You can do it with the zigzag opening, the wide opening, but it's good to have a single hole. So I changed that on my machine. I put in the right needle. Then I went to the right foot. On the bernette, I learned that you can look at what feet are available. Even though the manual said this is the foot, RX foot, I still tapped on the screen on the machine to find out what foot. So once I did that, there it is. There's a star for the free motion foot for the bernette, the RX. So I knew I had the right foot. And the next thing was the foot pressure. Let me go back. Okay, there we go. So the foot pressure is what we need to push right down on the fabric. But if we're doing free motion, we want to move the fabric. We don't want the machine to put pressure on the fabric, the foot, right? Because the foot for this machine is hopping. And so I don't need it to put pressure on the fabric. So I put that to 0. Okay. So manual, your needle and stitch plate, the right foot, then the foot pressure. Okay. And this is for the bernette. 79. The next thing is dropping the feed dogs. It said in the manual, I just showed it to you, it said drop your feed dogs. When we set up our machine according to the manufacturer's instructions, we are going to be able to have fun stitching, whether it's free motion quilting or anything else. Go to your manual, get the right needle, correct stitch plate for what you're stitching, then the foot pressure adjustment. For almost anything that we stitch, there's going to be an adjustment for the foot pressure. Then the foot, the right foot for what you want to do. And for free motion quilting, we know that we move the fabric. We don't, the machine doesn't create the stitch length. We do. So who knows why we drop the feed dogs? Do you know why we drop the feed dogs? Who knows? Why do we drop the feed dogs? I am curious. Do you know why we drop the feed dogs? Who in the chat? Faylin, Cassie, maybe you know. Maybe some of you know why we drop the feed dogs. The feed dogs, what do they do? What do the feed dogs do? There's a clue in the name. There's a clue in the name. We drop the feed dogs. Yes, Cassie. So we can move the fabric more easily. Exactly. Yes. So we don't just stitch in one place. Ah. Well, Lori, that teen and hood the fabric. I'm not sure what that means. Teen and hood the fabric. Not sure what that means. So the feed dogs, when we are stitching, not free motion quilting, hold. They help guide the thread. Oh, hey, Tracy. That's my cousin Tracy in there. Nice to see you here, Tracy. They help guide the thread. The feed dogs do guide. They are connected to the stitch length. When we set the stitch length on our machine, when we're just stitching regular things, the feed dogs feed the fabric according to the stitch length, right? It's feeding. Once we drop the feed dogs, it's no longer feeding the fabric. The only thing that's going to feed the fabric in front of the machine will be our hands. Our hands are moving the fabric with free motion quilting, so we are feeding the fabric instead of the machine feeding the fabric. That's why we drop the feed dogs for free motion quilting. It's free motion, and we are feeding the fabric in front of or underneath the needle. If I move my hands very fast, I will have big stitches, big stitch length, long stitch length. If my hands don't move, the needle's going to stitch in place, and I'll just have a hole in one place with a lot of thread, right? If I move my hands slow, I'll have very tiny stitches, very, very tiny stitches. So we have to think about, when we do free motion quilting, the relationship between our hand movements, because we're feeding the fabric, and how fast the machine is stitching. Well, once we drop the feed dogs, any setting for our stitch length, the stitch length can be at 5, it could be 1.2, it could be any number. But once the feed dogs are dropped, it's not engaging the stitch length that's set on the machine, because you need the feed dogs up in order for it to move the fabric to create the stitch length. So once those feed dogs are dropped below, it doesn't matter what the machine setting is, they're not engaged. So they are not going to create the stitch length. The only thing that's going to create the stitch length are our hands. And that's why a lot of ladies like the BSR, which is the Bernina Stitch Regulation. It has sensors that sense our hand movement. And once it senses our hand movement, it will create a consistent stitch length based on our hand movement. So a lot of ladies, when they get machines that are for free motion quilting, they want stitch regulation because they want consistent stitch length. Okay. All right. Hey, Tina, so glad that you're here. Welcome, welcome. I hope that makes sense with the feed dogs and stitch regulation. Many quilters, I would guess that most quilters don't have stitch regulation, meaning they don't get help from the machine to have a consistent stitch when they're stitching free motion quilting. That it's up to them, like the bernette. This bernette does not have stitch regulation, which I'm okay with. I'm okay with not having consistent stitch length as I learn free motion quilting on this machine. It's okay. It's not the end of the world that this one is big and this one is small and this one is big and this one is small, small, small. That's okay. So let me go back to this. I want to show you another video. So as I was stitching this out, I just had fun. The idea was to learn how to set up the machine with those 5 things: the needle, the right foot, dropping the feed dogs, and testing her out. How does she feel? How does she sound when I'm stitching? We want to get to know the behavior of our machine. We want to have this love relationship with our machine, knowing that when I want to do free motion quilting, I know exactly what she wants and needs to do the task. I know she needs a free motion foot. I know she needs the feed dogs dropped. I know what I need to do to set it up. Hey, yes, Jacqueline, move the fabric. Exactly. Exactly. Yes. So, who can recall the 5 tips? What's the first one? The first one is, and then the second, someone in the chat mentioned the second tip, someone mentioned the third. And then if you haven't already, I would recommend, while you're watching now, is to take out your phone. Go to your machine manufacturer, look for the manual if you haven't done this, and download the manual to your phone, the manual for your sewing machine onto your phone, and then search for free motion quilting and see how to set up your machine. That's the first step. That's the first step. Then look to see if you have all the things that they recommend for free motion quilting. Do you know how to set it up? Do you know how to attach the foot? Do you know how to uh, uh, lower the feed dogs? Every machine is different where you do that. So you want to test that. All right. Hey, so glad that you're here. No worries. Yes, this is recorded. You can come back and watch. No worries. No worries. Now, it's so important. It's one of the things that when you are taking a class like the art class I did in Dallas, I focus on a class like that. That's an intermediate class. My assumption is they already know how to set up their machine for free motion quilting. That's a basic thing, right? Breathe too. I like that. Yes, we have to breathe. And I'm glad you mentioned that because when we are confident that one, we know how to set up our machine, we're confident with the needles, we're confident with the foot, we are confident that our machine can stitch this, then we don't have to worry about the machine. We can concentrate on creating, on stitching out our story with thread. Oh, hey, Tangle, I'm so glad that you're here. Welcome, welcome. Ladies, remember her? She was here a couple of weeks ago talking about her book, a quilting book to help the next generation learn the history of quilting and also to start maybe to become a quilter themselves. So make sure you watch that. It was a fabulous interview. Just go to my YouTube channel and look for the interview, Quilting a Legacy. Thanks for being here. Now, what else did I want to share with you? I shared those tips. I don't think anyone in the chat mentioned the 5 tips again. Perhaps you don't remember. I'll go over them later. I'll remind you later what the 5 tips were. What I do want to share with you, and this is wonderful. I love it when ladies who have been to Quilt Conversations Live and are taking my online courses and they are applying the tips that I share here. The tips, the techniques, and one of the ladies is in the chat on YouTube, and that is Lori. Lori, where did you find me, Lori? I think you found Quilt Conversations Live on Amazon, I think it was, and you kind of watched from the background. You didn't join the chat right away on YouTube, I think for about a month or so. And then she finally joined the chat. So if you are watching and you're not in the chat, join us. It's really a fun place. So she finally joined the chat and then she got a notebook because I was sharing weekly tips and she's a teacher. So she knows how important notes are. Oh, on YouTube by accident. Okay, she found me on YouTube by accident. Okay. So Lori has been purposeful about improving her quilting, and I want to share a little bit of her journey with you. She was gracious enough to answer a few questions. I can't share all of the answers that she gave. I'm going to share some of them. And some of the questions I asked her was what has Quilt Conversations Live done to impact her quilting experience? What in the community has been helpful for her as a quilter, as a learner? And so she's sharing with us a quilt she made for her niece, Cassidy. And it's a beautiful quilt. Let's take a look. Here is Lori's quilt for her niece, Cassidy. Lori, can you share with us in the chat why you made the quilt and talk about that specific request that your niece made in the design of the quilt? I think the ladies, oh, Lori says, I still take notes. She's so good at that. I love the quilt. It's beautiful, and I think it's the fabric is Starry Night. Is that right? It has that Starry Night from that famous art piece. Okay. Beautiful, beautiful quilt. And it's a big quilt. Where are my notes? So she says that my niece inherited an old quilt I made, and it finally gave out. Starry Night is the name of the fabric. Thank you, Lori. That's right. Starry Night. Beautiful. So this is the second quilt that she's made for her niece. And let's see. She employed many of the tips learned here live on Quilt Conversations Live. And one of the courses on my website was a 10-part series, how I go from fabric all the way to quilt. And it was 10 steps, and she took a lot of notes. Let's look at the back of the quilt. It's a queen size quilt, and I love the back. Tell us, what was the inspiration for that beautiful line of quilt blocks in the back? I love that. By the time I get to the back of putting the quilt together, I rarely piece the back. I always have an idea that I want to piece the back. Okay, so she says her niece wanted it to be similar to the old quilt that she made, that now she's replacing, with rectangular boxes instead of square. So it was a rectangular instead of square. And the back was a surprise element. I like it. It makes it two-sided. She wanted to practice piecing. And that was actually one of the questions that I asked her. What were the 3 things that helped her from Quilt Conversations Live? What were some things that she now has adopted and used in making her quilt? And here's what she said. I met 3 new friends. Test, test, test equals practice, practice, practice. Precision cutting and starch. Lori, let the ladies know in the chat how these 3 things impacted the result of Cassidy's quilt. She practiced her piecing. She now prepares her fabric differently. Hello, Deneen. So glad that you're here. Welcome, welcome. She prepares her fabric, whereas before she did things a little bit different. She would iron her material, but now she washes, she starches, she presses. It's a different experience now. And I think you can see the results. I couldn't have done it without either of the 3. So I think you also said that your 1/4-inch seam allowance has improved as a result of employing better pressing, starching, right? And you said something about needles and thread. There are so many different elements to making a quilt that sometimes we can take for granted, and we might wonder, why am I not getting the results that I want? And so I love that Lori was very purposeful, not only in taking notes, but applying what she has been learning. And it has changed her piecing. And she said this. Let's see if I can find the right one. There it is. I learned the importance of needles and thread. My stitches look great now. When you put together a quilt and you know the difference between how your stitches look before you tried before and then after you try the technique with the right needles, the right thread, preparing the fabric. So she says, I started the idea in November, but waited until January to begin, which is another one of her responses to the questions I asked, is that she has slowed down. She has she wasn't in a rush to do the project. She waited until she was confident and she learned the skills she needed to finish, which is fantastic. I think that is so important, that we don't rush through a process, that we allow ourselves time to learn. And there's nothing like last minute projects, right? Last minute projects always come, but if we've taken the time to learn, when a last minute project comes, we already have our needle knowledge, our thread knowledge, the knowledge that we've been applying. We have improved our pressing technique. We have improved our stitching. And she says, yeah, thank you to the family. Now, Lori, I received this photo. You gave me a little bit of information about it, but I wasn't sure what you were trying to communicate with this one. She did a beautiful cross hatch stitching over the quilt, and it looks great. I think you said you used two different color threads, and you hadn't done that before. Can you, I don't know how well, ladies, you can see that on camera. Let me know how well you can see that. But Lori might be able to give more insight into this. So just as she's typing this out to tell us more about this, I want to share with you something else that she said. As a result of using the right thread and needle and improving her piecing, she feels more confident in giving the quilt to someone, knowing that it's going to hold up, that it won't fall apart, that her execution and taking her time to make an heirloom quilt, one for a family member, that's going to last, that it's not going to fall apart because of poor seam allowance or using the wrong type of thread, etc., etc. Okay. What else? So I'm just so pleased for you, Lori. I mean, congratulations. And your niece is a very lucky young lady, that she is the beneficiary of your labor of love. So she says, yes, I used variegated thread on the front, forest green thread on the forest part of the back, and a third complementary thread on the back blocking piece. Wow. You changed threads multiple times. Now, is this as a result of you learning more about threads through Quilt Conversations Live, our conversations about threads and how to select threads? I like that. That's fantastic. Forest green in the forest. So she really took her time so that the thread color would be appropriate for the fabric that she was using. Like that, like that. And she says this, and I'm so glad. She says this to the QCL community. And if you're just joining us for the first time, or you've only been here a few times, it's worth staying, because yes, the ladies come for free motion quilting tips or other quilting information, but we've become a family. We really have. We've gotten to know each other. Yes, she says all the thread selections are based on the things that she's learned. Lori, is this year number 2 that you've been here? Is this the beginning of the second year, or I forget? Has it been 2 years? I forget how long it's been since you started learning. Was it last year that you started? I can't remember. My memory is going, but I want to share one image of her process. I'm glad you sent this because sometimes we can see the finished quilt and forget, something that's a queen size quilt, that it takes effort. She said she took her time and she basted her quilt with what looks like pool noodles. Lori says her notes started on April 2022, just starting year two. All right. Fantastic. Almost a year and a half, I guess. Yep. Just starting year two. So she used the pool noodle to sandwich your quilt. Did you use basting spray or pins? I like that. It lived on the table for 2 months. That's a nice option. By the way, she used 3 6-foot tables to baste her quilt. 3 6-foot tables. It's basting spray. It's nice to have that kind of space so that it can sit until you're ready to get to it. I like that. And so the last thing that I wanted to share with you, this is what Lori says. I didn't put the whole quote, but it's most of it. She wants to thank you. Thank you. She said, thank you and Copper and the Quilt Conversations live community for your advice, your concurrence, your acceptance, that it's allowed her to learn and grow. Yes. Thank you, Lori, for sharing your quilt with us and your journey with this quilt. So my family learned to walk around it. Yes. Awesome job. It's so true. Awesome job. Okay, let's see. So, Lori, thank you. And my cousin Tracy has a question. As a beginner, what machine did you use? Is that a question for me or is that a question for Lori? Anyone in the chat can answer. We were all beginners at some time. When I was a beginner as a quilter, I started with what I had. I had this small blue machine. It was a machine that I got at a department store and it was tiny. But I didn't know what I didn't know. I just thought I have a sewing machine. And so I started that way. And then once I began to learn like Lori, then I purchased a used machine on eBay. I went to another quilter and said, okay, I want to upgrade my machine. What machine do you recommend? And so she recommended one with a little more bells and whistles. Okay, anyone. So Lori says that she has a Singer 9960 and she moved up to a Kenmore. Yeah. I like, if you're new to sewing and quilting, I like the mechanical machines. I like the only thing that I would recommend you don't do is what I did. Once I knew that I was serious about sewing and learning to quilt, I I purchased machines based on a limited budget. But then the machine didn't last. I wore it out. So I recommend if you can buy a good machine, a good brand like Bernina. I'm a Bernina ambassador, or a bernette. A bernette is a value price machine with similar Bernina features like the 79 that I have, but purchase one, get a good machine, no matter what brand it is, a good machine, and buy it used if you have a limited budget. that's what I did. I finally invested in a good machine and I purchased it used. Someone's always selling their machine, and that lasted me over 10 years. And finally, I gave it away to someone who was a learner. Where where I was when I got the machine, I gave that to someone who wanted to learn once I upgraded to the next level of machines. Because the reason I say this is because all those smaller purchases was, to me, money wasted. I spent hundreds of dollars on these small machines that didn't last. Then I had to buy another one that was a few $100s, and then another one that was a few $100s. If I had just saved that money and purchased a used machine from the beginning, that was a good machine, I would have had it longer. I wouldn't have to spend multiple times. Okay, let's see. We are almost done for the night. I wanted to share with you, it's the month of July. And as you know, every month I have a course that is on sale. And the course for the month of July is thread and needles. There are 3 videos. You get unlimited access. You get to hand in assignments. You get to talk to me via the internal messaging system on my website. You can upload photos. You can get help, but you get to learn about thread weight, needle sizes, thread type, needle type, for quilting, for piecing. It's a fantastic way to learn about needles and thread. With the videos, I demonstrate, I show you different things about needle and thread. Awesome, Tracy. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. Yeah. And, Tracy, if you want a sewing machine, you're my cousin. I have extra machines that I'm not using that I would be happy to give you. You are my blood. You're right. So, just send me a message. Let's have a conversation. I'd love to help you out to start sewing. So, if you're looking for a machine or to upgrade, I have some machines, right? Yes. All right. So, no need to go out and do that. I've been blessed with some sewing machines, and I am happy to share with my cousin. So, go to the website. I did pin on the YouTube channel at the very top of the chat a link to my website, and it's a very good course if you want to learn more. All right, that's that. What else? If you didn't know, I am teaching in Michigan in September in the fall at AQS. I'm teaching multiple ruler quilting courses and free motion. So I'm going to teach a basic power lines class using one ruler. Then we're going to look at quilting with circles, and that's another class. We have the clamshell ruler. We're going to learn how to quilt with that. Multiple designs and techniques. You will become a near expert in my classes. And the diamonds class. Most of the classes are 3 hours. There are some that are 6. I prefer the longer 6 hours because then I can give you more time and attention. And then there's a free motion quilting class. The free motion quilting class is 6 hours because we work on spiral designs and then we learn how to put it in this star quilt. That's what I love to do. Love to do. Want to help you get to the next level in your quilting journey. So just let me know how I can help. All right. Thank you, Tangular. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. Did I forget anything? I think that's it. That's it for tonight. Boy, that went by pretty fast. Again, please congratulate Lori on a job well done. And I do have one announcement for those of you that have known Copper. Copper has been the moderator of Quilt Conversations live chat on YouTube for some time. She is taking a break because um and she said I could share this, that she is now focused on caring for her parents. As you know, sometimes she would come and go and she would talk about how her parents were watching with her when she would go visit, but now she is dedicating more time to their care. And she wanted to, ladies, to let you know that she will pop in and out of Cool Conversations Live when she can. And she also asked for your prayers for her and for her parents. So, Copper, we love you, we miss you, but we also understand your family is a priority. And so, we're so glad that you've been with us for so long. And we can't wait for when you can join us. We know that you need to take care of your parents. And we're so glad that you have that opportunity, that blessing to do so. All right. Let's see. Can you put your Michigan information below on in info box or on Facebook? Yes, I can. I will put it in the comments on Facebook after we end here, and then I will also put it in the description box below the YouTube video. But you can also go to my website and click on events, and I have Quilt Show. You click on Quilt Show and you will find out information about that. Let me see if I can get to that really quickly and put it in the chat. But you can go to my website and get information about the AQS show in Michigan. I'll copy that. Copy. Okay, here we go. There's the link to the events tab on my website for the quilt show. Thank you, Lori. Thank you for doing that. Yes, Deneen, thank you for praying for Copper. Yes, she's a special lady. Yes, we will miss Copper, and warm thoughts to her parents. Yes. You are welcome, Cassie. You are welcome. Hey, there goes Rochelle. Do I have any pre-printed fabric panels for us to practice on? You're the second person that asked me that. I do have a few. I'll have to put something together, Rochelle. What size are you looking for? Small, medium, 1 yard? Let me know what size. Can you send me an email on what you're interested in, and then I can respond to you what I have available. I don't have it on my website just yet, but I do have a few that I could share with you. Just let me know, and I'll let you know how much it is. Cassie, thank you. Oh, you're welcome, Sharon. You're quite welcome. I did promise you to remind you what the 5 tips were. The first tip was know your machine, how to set up free motion quilting. And within that is the needle, the stitch plate, foot pressure, feed dogs, and the right free motion foot. Those combinations, you want to know how that all works together on your machine. Once you get comfortable with your machine, those 5 essential things, the foot pressure, the needle, the stitch plate, and the feed dogs, you have built a foundation to build on. It's the beginning of building a free motion quilting life. And I want to thank my sponsor, Clover. Remember, marking tools, when you start to look for marking tools, don't forget to look for Clover's marking tools where you can iron it off or remove the marks with water. You want to have a couple of options when it comes to marking tools for free motion quilting. All right, ladies, this is it for today. I will see you for another Quilt Conversations Live in a couple of weeks. Thank you for joining me. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to leave a comment below. If you're new, subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow me on Facebook and other social media, and give this a thumbs up. When you do that, YouTube likes it and it lets other people know that they can also come to Quilt Conversations Live. Don't keep it a secret. Tell your friends to come and join us and to join the Quilt Conversations Live community. I'll see you next time, ladies. Awesome. Thank you, Rochelle. Bye, Benita. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Bye, ladies.